Good afternoon. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of the Spokane area, welcome to our 2021 general election candidate forum featuring candidates for Spokane City Council District 3, Position 2. City Council District 3 is the northwest portion of the city, generally north of I-90 and west of Division. I am Lisa Kuhar, your moderator, and Mike Bell of the League is the timer. Election day for the 2021 general election is Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. Ballots will be mailed to all registered voters about 3 weeks before election day and must be postmarked or deposited in conveniently located ballot boxes no later than 8 p.m. on election day. You can register to vote by mail or online by October 25th, 2021, or in person on election day at the Spokane County Elections Office, 1033 West Gardner Avenue, or at Center Place, 2426 North Discovery Place, Spokane Valley. For other questions about casting your ballot or information about the candidates, contact the Spokane County Elections Office at 509-477-2320 or visit their website, spokanecounty.org/elections, or on the League of Women Voters online voters guide, Vote 411 at vote411.org. I will be asking the candidates questions that have been formulated by the League's Voter Services Committee, and will ask as many questions as time allows. Before the questions begin, the candidates will have up to 30 seconds to introduce themselves and tell the voters why they are running. They will have up to 1 minute to answer each question with additional time for rebuttal or a follow-up question as appropriate. And each candidate will have the opportunity for a 30-second closing statement. The first speaker will alternate with each question. Now I will introduce the candidates. They are Mike Lish and Zach Zapone. Starting with you, candidate Lish, you will have 30 seconds to tell us why you're running for Spokane City Council.
Okay. Starting now?
Yes,
or with
sir.
the timer? Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry. So my name is Mike Lish, and my wife and I have lived in Spokane most of our lives. And this is the place that we have chosen to raise our family. And in that time that we've been here, we have seen the effects that bad policy coming out of City Council has affected businesses, families, residents in general. And that's why I'm running, is we need to use common sense and balance and actually listen.
Thank you, candidate Lish. Now, candidate Zapone, why are you running for Spokane City Council?
My name is Zach Zapone, and I was born and raised here in Spokane in the 3rd District, graduated from North Central High School, just like my grandpa. And I'm running for City Council because I believe that everybody deserves a fair shot. Our city is facing a lot of major issues this election cycle, with housing, public health and safety, and developing our local economy. And I believe I have the experiences, skills, and ideas to put forward to work hard for you, to listen to you, and to make those changes in City Council to make our lives better here in Spokane.
Thank you, candidate Zapone. Now we'll turn to our first question, and it will go to candidate Zapone. As housing prices rise, so does the cost of owning or renting houses or apartments. What should the city do to encourage more affordable housing in Spokane for people who have been priced out of the housing market?
The housing crisis is probably one of the #1 things I hear on the day-to-day, whether it's in school or at the doors or in the community. People are really concerned about being able to afford houses, buy new houses if you're a first-time owner, or increasing rents. A lot of seniors are really worried about being tied down or their fixed incomes and the increases in rent. And so what we can do is address the supply side and the demand side for rental in the rental market and the housing market. On the rental side, we need to make sure that we have a transition out of the eviction moratorium. The federal government has given a lot of rental assistance, and we need to make sure we have time to get that out to landlords and to renters. On the supply side, we need to encourage development, and we need to reduce the barriers to development in Spokane and focus on the comprehensive planning along centers and corridors to infill. Talk to a lot of developers and realtors, and there's a lot of barriers that we can do to make a variety of the missing housing stock for a lot of first-time homeowners, renters, and smaller units that are needed in our community.
Thank you, candidate Zapone. Candidate Lish, same question. As housing prices rise, so does the cost of owning or renting houses or apartments. What should the city do to encourage more affordable housing in Spokane for people who have been priced out of the housing market?
We need to really take a good look at how we zone and what we can do to change the zoning in our city to allow more houses to be built. I know that not everybody wants a apartment complex in their backyard or a multiplex of some sort. We're going to have to make some sort of sacrifices to be able to have enough housing to get everybody housed. And it really is a supply issue. Like Zach said, the barriers are too high. We need to cut some of the red tape. And with that, we also need to work on our infrastructure.
Thank you, candidate Lish. Question 2, we'll start with candidate Lish. As the population of the city of Spokane continues to grow, what measures will you support for reasonable development and its impact on traffic, school bonds, water use, etc.?
All right. So this goes back to housing and infrastructure. I think we need to be smart and look forward on building more infrastructure. You know, when you're talking to people that live up on 5 Mile and in the Indian Trail area, they're really worried about the traffic. I see it on Wellesley. I see it on Francis. The traffic has gotten much worse in our town, and we need to have the foresight to build properly. Yeah.
Thank you, candidate Lish. Candidate Sapone, to you. As the population of the city of Spokane continues to grow, what measures will you support for reasonable development and its impact on traffic, school bonds, water use, etc.?
Yeah, it's really important to be facing the increased demand in Spokane. Spokane's a great place, and people are learning about that. And we need to be embracing the growth. And with that unprecedented growth right now in Spokane, is that we really need to be planning for that and planning for the future and investing in our future. I studied urban planning at Princeton University and worked in transportation and have a background in these issues that I want to bring to city council. We need to have a perspective on city council of somebody who has worked on issues and knows the principles of planning and how to be prepared. Some of the things that we can do is we need to alleviate our traffic and congestion problems by building inward and infilling. There's a lot of empty developments and parking lots downtown along Division. And those are places that we can invest in our infrastructure and then build up with public transit so people aren't relying on cars everywhere they go. And that'll also make sure that we don't have sprawl, which will just increase traffic, increase our prices with utilities and water hookups and things like that if we continue to sprawl outside the city.
Thank you, candidate Sapone. Starting with candidate Sapone, the issue of homelessness continues to be a major problem in Spokane. Yet in the last few months, employees have resigned from the Community Housing and Human Services Department. How can the city council work with the city to address staffing, resignations, and still accomplish all of the needed work related to increasing the number of beds in existing low barrier shelters and addressing the spread of encampments to residential neighborhoods?
Yeah, like many people in Spokane, I've been really concerned about what's happening in City Hall right now in the administration. We see reports all the time of the toxic environment in City Hall that caused Cupid Alexander to resign. The director of HR resigned, citing the environment working in City Hall. Our police force is understaffed right now. About 10% of the police force is understaffed, and about half of the community housing and human services is understaffed. I think that's deeply concerning. Our city is missing out on valuable resources during a housing crisis. Even the mayor has declared a housing crisis, and yet half of our department that works on this issue is understaffed. And we've lost out on multiple millions of dollars of grants that could go towards housing simply because we don't have people. The city council can prioritize recruitment and bring people to work for the city and make sure that we're getting results and holding the administration accountable for implementing this in our city.
Thank you, candidate Sapone. Candidate Lish, same question. The issue of homelessness continues to be a major problem in Spokane. Yet in the last few months, employees have resigned from the Community Housing and Human Services Department. How can the city council work with the city to address staffing, resignations, and still accomplish all of the needed work relating to increasing the number of beds in existing low barrier shelters and addressing the spread of encampments to residential neighborhoods?
I can't really speak for the administration on this and what's going on in the toxic environment that is downtown. I'm not down there and I haven't worked down there. What I do know is, what I do here, I suppose I should say, is that there's not a whole lot of good communication that goes back and forth between city council and the administration. I want to work on that. Council and the administration, in the mayor's office particularly, need to work together closer to solve these problems and actually listen to each other. And it's a big problem. That's what we should be focused on.
Thank you, Candidate Leash. Question 4, we'll start with Candidate Leash. Next year, the city of Spokane will be eligible for an additional $40 million from the federal government for COVID response. How would you propose to spend this money?
An open public discussion on how we should spend this money. This is a one-time windfall. I think that we need to bring people to the table and find out what we could do with this money that would have the most positive effect for our community. With that being said, I'd also like to make sure that there are funds aside to help the struggling small businesses. Even though as we're coming out of COVID, it's not getting any easier. We need to make sure that we have that economic backbone to keep our city strong.
Thank you, Candidate Leash. Candidate Zappone. Next year, the city of Spokane will be eligible for an additional $40 million from the federal government for COVID response. How would you propose to spend this money?
It's not very often when the city gets an extra windfall from the federal government, and it's a great opportunity to invest in our community in Spokane. And I think it's really important to listen to our community and do outreach to stakeholders, both stakeholders and community members, and do the work to hear what people want. But we also know that there's a lot of demand for addressing issues in our community and problems and needs, especially when it comes to housing and homelessness, when it comes to investing in our infrastructure to support our economy. So I would look at ways that we can invest in our infrastructure to support our workforce, to support businesses, and also invest in addressing housing and homelessness. If we want to tackle the homeless issue head on, we need to have the investment and prioritize that funding to address shelters and transitional housing to get people back on their feet and working again so that they can be taxpayers and contributing to our community.
Thank you, Candidate Zappone. Candidate Zappone, question 5 goes to you first. The Spokane County Board of Commissioners officially reestablished the Spokane Regional Law and Justice Council on June 29th, reducing the size of the advisory council from 25 to 18 and establishing a racial equity committee, as well as reducing City of Spokane involvement. Given the changes in the Spokane Regional Law and Justice Council, how will you as a city council member address the disproportional impact of the justice system on people of color? What initiatives do you propose to create a fair, just, and equitable criminal justice system?
Yeah, I think the issue of public health and safety is a critical issue, and that's why I say I'm going to prioritize it. And part of that is making sure that we're addressing the inequalities that are in our system. There's a reason that last year we saw one of the most massive public demonstrations in our history, and that happened here in Spokane. People were going to the streets and demanding some change when it comes to public safety and the disproportionate impacts that has on communities of color. So we need to have some simple solutions and accountability for our police officers. We need to have independent oversight and make sure that they're held accountable, just like any other professional is held accountable for their job. We also need to make sure that we help them do and support their jobs, and that's deterring crime and responding to emergencies and enforcing laws. So we need to invest in our community in mental health resources, education, and housing, and addressing the issues that that lead people to crime in the first place, and a true investment in our community.
Thank you, Candidate Zappone. Candidate Leash, same question. The Spokane County Board of Commissioners officially reestablished the Spokane Regional Law and Justice Council on June 29th, reducing the size of the advisory council from 25 to 18 and establishing a racial equity committee, as well as reducing City of Spokane involvement. Given the changes in the Spokane Regional Law and Justice Council, how will you as a city council member address the disproportionate impact of the justice system on people of color? What initiatives do you propose to create a fair, just, and equitable criminal justice system?
All right. Well, I'm not a lawyer, and I could understand going from 25 to 18 people on a committee like that to actually get things done. I think if you have too many people at one time, not everybody's going to be heard, which is unfortunate, and that was their choice. We need to make sure that we have our public safety and that our police officers aren't overworked, that they can have time off and that they're not working overtime to keep the staffing levels where they are right now. I think if we could get into the mindset that they are people too, we could find a way to make it work.
Thank you, candidate Lish. Candidate Lish, this question starts with you. City Council created the Spokane Action Subcommittee in early 2019 in order to focus on issues surrounding climate change and its effects on Spokane and the region. The group is working to release the final plan for council consideration this fall. What are your thoughts on efforts that the city of Spokane can be implementing as we experience increasing climate changes in the Pacific Northwest?
Would you read that last part again, please? Sorry.
What are your thoughts on efforts that the city of Spokane can be implementing as we experience increasing climate change in the Pacific Northwest?
So my feeling on this issue is we live in a very green state, in a very green country, and we have huge problems right now that are to the detriment of our community. We need to get back to the basics. We need to get back to the public safety, to figuring out the homelessness crisis, to working on housing. We won't have a community to worry about the environment if we don't take care of those problems to begin with.
Thank you, candidate Lish. Candidate Zappone, same question. City Council created the Spokane Action Subcommittee in early 2019 in order to focus on issues surrounding climate change and its effects on Spokane and the region. The group is working to release the final plan for council consideration this fall. What are your thoughts on efforts that the city of Spokane can be implementing as we experience increasing climate change in the Pacific Northwest?
Yeah, climate change is an incredibly important issue that's impacting our community. I grew up here in Spokane, like a lot of people, and we didn't have smoke days or smoke season growing up. This past year and the year before, schools had to shut down due to the impact of smoke. And students and kids couldn't play or participate outside. People couldn't enjoy the great natural resources of our community. And that's what makes Spokane great, is our access to nature. And we have to address the impact of climate change head on. And the city has a role in doing that. Of course, we need to have an international response and a federal and state response, but there are things that we could be doing here locally to mitigate our impact on the environment and address climate change. Encouraging Spokanescape and reducing our use of water, transitioning to more electric use in electric cars. These are all great starting points, and I'm supporting a call by the Action Committee to set our goal of reducing greenhouse emissions.
Thank you, candidate Zappone. Candidate Zappone, question 7 starts with you. How should the city prioritize and find the money for improved road maintenance for residential neighborhoods?
Yeah, I think it's really important. As I drive around town and as I talk to people, a big issue that they want to work on is road maintenance. And we see it when we drive around and get flat tires, and that impacts our bottom line pocketbooks. So we need the city to be able to invest in our infrastructure and help us get day to day where we need to go. That money can come from places in our budget, but also from the American Rescue Act plan that's coming too. We just need to decide what is our priorities and how can we find efficiencies and study that. I studied public policy at Princeton. I look to where can government make the most efficient choices. And that's what I do personally too. I drove a 2000 Saturn until the day it broke this last January. And that was because I believe in driving a lean operation, finding waste and eliminating it, and making sure that we spend tax dollars wisely.
Thank you, Candidate Sapone. Candidate Lish, how should the city prioritize and find the money for improved road maintenance for residential neighborhoods?
To be honest with you, it's 2021 and I cannot believe that roads are as big an issue as they are now. This is something that should have been done a long time ago. And this goes back to the city not taking care of the basic needs and the basic tenets of what it should be doing. Yes, our roads are terrible. We need to find the money to do it, and we need to find a new plan to do it. I'm sure we can find money in the budget. And the ARP money is another great option for some of that. But we need to make sure that what we do really has an impact if we use the ARP money.
Thank you, Candidate Lish. Candidate Lish, question 8, how would you address the public safety concerns many people have about the concentrations of homeless people in or near downtown?
Big issue. The biggest issue that I'm hearing at the doors. We need to change how we approach it. We need to pivot. We need to go back to the drawing board and start over on the things that aren't working to fix our city. I know that I talk to people all over town that don't go downtown anymore because of the disaster it is. And it's unfortunate. We have a beautiful city. We're compassionate. The residents of Spokane are so compassionate. But it has been, our compassion is being used as tolerance. And until we get back to actually using compassion to solve the problem, it's going to continue.
Thank you, Candidate Lish. Candidate Sapone, how would you address the public safety concerns many people have about the concentrations of homeless people in or near downtown?
Yeah, I think it's important to have a plan and ideas about what we should do to address homelessness. It is a safety concern and it's a business concern. It's a human dignity issue. I think the first and foremost thing is to remember that people experiencing homelessness are people and they deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. And many of them are veterans and people in our community or students who had bad experiences. After that, it's to have a plan. And I have a 4-step plan to do that. The first step is to prevent people from being homeless in the first place. That's addressing affordable housing. The second thing is to have a coordinated approach to get people off the street and into shelters. And that we can have that coordinated approach and with a lot of the great providers. Third step is to have the shelter system and access to resources, mental health, and the issues that the resources that homeless folks need to get stable again. And the last and most important is to transition out of homelessness. To get people back on their feet, we need transitional housing, job training programs, and the other tools to get people back on their feet.
Thank you, Candidate Sapone. Question 9 begins with Candidate Sapone. What is the best way to fund and prioritize better code enforcement for such issues as the abandoned vehicles and motorhomes increasingly found in neighborhoods throughout the city?
Yeah, this is an important issue too, and it goes to a lot of the basic issues in our community again, which is addressing what causes abandoned vehicles or the fact that a lot of those people And those vehicles, people are living in their vehicles. And that's because we're experiencing a housing crisis and an issue with homelessness. And so we need to do what we've talked about already, which is address those underlying issues and get people into homes where they're stable. Otherwise, if they're not in the homes or in the shelters, they're out in our community and not being treated with dignity and respect. So when it comes to the code enforcement issues, we have to make sure we have shelters where people have access to resources where they can go. We need to make sure that housing is affordable, which I have a plan for. And we need to make sure that we're supporting and prioritizing police too, and giving them the resources we need. I'm deeply concerned, as I stated before, that we have not been having leadership that's planning for retirement and recruiting police officers, so that we have a lack of police officers. It's not a funding issue. We've been funding our police. We have a lack of leadership that is hiring and supporting our police.
Thank you, Candidate Sapone. Candidate Leash. What is the best way to fund and prioritize better code enforcement for such issues as the abandoned vehicles and motorhomes increasingly found in neighborhoods throughout the city?
If we don't get to the root of the problem, it'll be a problem that we continue to have. And this goes back to, we need to be able to give tools to people to help themselves get out of these situations, to not have to live in a vehicle. And I'm concerned that if we continue to just do the housing first model, we're not giving the tools to anybody to be successful. We may be putting a roof over their head, but we're not giving them the tools to be successful in the future.
Thank you, Candidate Lish. Question 10 begins with Candidate Lish. The city's Parks and Recreation Department has recently completed a community survey. What is your vision for future parks and recreational areas in Spokane?
I would like to see more family-friendly parks and activities. We have some great parks in Spokane, and I would like to see more in our part of town. You know, we don't have a Manitou over here. I mean, we have Audubon, which is very nice. But I think that we need to spread the love all over the city.
Thank you. Candidate Sapone, the city's Parks and Recreation Department has recently completed a community survey. What is your vision for future parks and recreational areas in Spokane?
Yeah, I think our parks are one of our greatest assets in the city of Spokane, and we have a lot of amazing parks up here on the north side too. Audubon, Corbin Park, right next a lot of the district borders Riverside State Park, which is a great resource. But it's concerning when you go to some of the parks and you can see some disinvestment in them. I've gone to Shadle and you can tell the playground is falling apart too. And so we need to make sure that we make the parks accessible to all groups of people. And that includes children and families, that includes skaters and recreation activities and water. These are all great assets to our community. And I envision a future where our parks, most people are walking distance or biking distance to a park. They use it as recreation, to get outside, to enjoy our environment, escape, but also have access to internet and broadband. And that makes our community more connected and thriving, and attracts more businesses to our area.
Thank you, Candidate Sapone. This concludes our question and answer session. And now for your closing statements, you will each have up to 30 seconds. And so with this, we begin with Candidate Sapone. 30 seconds for your closing remarks, sir.
Thank you for having this forum. This election is really important about the future of Spokane. We're at a point where we're seeing a tremendous amount of growth in our region, but we're also seeing a lot of people experiencing a lot of issues and needs around housing and homelessness, prioritizing our public health and safety, and infrastructure. I've got the skills and ideas to work on these issues. I've demonstrated that, and we'll continue to work on these issues as an elected official while also always listening to your responses. Please feel free to reach out, check out my website, contact me, zachzapone.com. Thanks.
Thank you, Candidate Sapone. Candidate Lish, your 30-second closing statement, please.
All right. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. I am grateful for the opportunity to have participated today in today's forum. I will use common sense, foresight, and I have the ability to listen to people and let them be heard. And a vote for me would be a statement that our city is headed in the wrong direction. We need a fully funded police department for our safety, and we need to stop stifling economic freedoms. We need to find real solutions in getting our most vulnerable populations the support and tools they need to be successful. I humbly ask for your vote, Mike Lish.
Thanks, candidate Lish. This concludes our 2021 general election forum featuring candidates for Spokane City Council District 3, Position 2, Mike Lish and Zach Sapone. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, thank you to our candidates for participating in this forum. We hope this has given you, the voters, information that will help you make an informed decision when marking and returning your ballots by 8 p.m. on Election Day, Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. For more information, visit our website, www.lwvspokane.org, or our online voters guide, Vote 411, at vote411.org.